Hey, Caleb here. It's Tuesday, June 22nd. Welcome to the Kevin White Show, formerly known as Audacious Generosity. This is the podcast helping you live, transform, and prosper in the presence of God. On Friday, July 2nd, Kevin will be sharing a powerful message from God's Word entitled, God Guides, God Provides. I hope you'll join us for this international live broadcast from the USA via Zoom, YouTube, or Facebook at 10 a.m. Eastern Time on Friday, July 2nd. Details at kevinwhite.us. We'll see you there. Okay, now here's Kevin with today's show.
Hello, everyone. This is Kevin White. Welcome to the Kevin White Show. Caleb, I really appreciate you being a part of the show. Thank you for that warm introduction. My team is totally rocking it with these intros and closers for the show, and I'm so proud and ecstatic and excited about the Kevin White Show. But you know, it would not be possible if you were not with us in the audience. And I want to welcome everyone from Afghanistan, India, China, Brazil, Uganda, USA, Canada, all over the world. People are tuning in to the Kevin White Show. You're one of them, and I hope you will share this with your friends. You'll let them know about the Kevin White Show and the value, the content, the encouragement. I am here to help you live, transform, and prosper in the presence of God. And so if that is true and I am a help to you by the grace of God, then please share the show with others and encourage them to tune in every week for this encouragement into their lives as well. Well, today's episode is not going to disappoint you. I am confident of that. I actually just want to wave real quick to everyone watching on YouTube. You can catch this on my YouTube channel. I hope you've subscribed to that, Kevin White on YouTube, but you can see me. I am waving to you right now. I really appreciate all of the subscribers and everyone watching, but you can hear this podcast wherever podcasts are listened to around the world. Well, I again join Caleb in welcoming you to today's episode. We have one of my friends, Dave Ebert, who interviews me today for his podcast, Gifts of Glory Live. It's a radio show, and I am so thankful that God brought me and Dave together. What an incredible friend and man of God and champion Dave is. And I was thrilled to get to be a part of his show and talk about my new book, Audacious Generosity, and a lot of history about my backstory and what God has done in just providing gifts of his glory into my life as well. Dave prayed for me. I'm just really encouraged by that new friendship, and I'm sure you will be too. And so this is only an excerpt of that interview. You're going to want to go over to Dave Ebert's, Ebert, and look for Gifts of Glory Live and listen to the entire interview where Dave interviews me for his podcast. This is only an excerpt. Dave, take it away.
It gave you experience and exposure of meeting that need, and it didn't even come out of your own wallet.
Yeah.
And that's just the beauty of the kingdom of God.
Absolutely. And you talked about it a moment ago. I just pulled this up, 1 Thessalonians 5:17. This is the NLT. It says, never stop praying. Other versions will say, pray ceaselessly or pray without ceasing.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty clear. I don't think that there's an exception. It's an ongoing conversation. It's kind of like if you're texting your wife throughout the day, the conversation doesn't really end. You may take there may be a moment where you have to focus on work, but the conversation doesn't end. It's an ongoing relationship. You're still building and getting close. And the giving is the byproduct, because God doesn't have to tell you and command you to give once you're in that close relationship. It's a byproduct. It's a fruit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're literally hanging out with the richest, most generous person in the world. And he lacks nothing in order to bring himself glory and to make his name known. And so, if you're invited like to a sports event with the owner of that team, and you're sitting up in the sky boxes and you're eating a feast with the owner, I mean, you're not going to be worried about where's the bottle of water if you're thirsty. I mean, it's all just going to be flowing because you're hanging out with the owner. And the same is true when we hang out with the owner of the universe who created it all. And there's no limit to what he can put into our hands. And all of a sudden you are becoming a giver, and it's because you're hanging out with the giver. I mean, God, sometimes we limit our prayers and asking God for a gift instead of asking him for the giver. It's like we want money when he's willing to give us an ATM. And I'm not talking about Santa Claus. I'm not talking about name it, claim it. I'm talking about hear and obey it. There's a big difference there. But there's no limit. And sometimes we bring our prayer life down to such a small ask when he's so willing to give us the nations if we would ask for them. Now, I don't need a nation. You don't need a nation. The nations is for him. And that's what we're asking for. We need to ask big for him. And, I've been staring at the Great Commission and the 1040 window. So just a quick overview real quick of just what I've been looking at for the last 20 years. God took this poor kid from rural North Carolina and took me 8,000 miles away over to India. There was no Indian nationals living in North Carolina 20 years ago. Now there are Indian nationals all over. I'm in the Triangle, North Carolina, and there's Indian nationals everywhere. And that's a beautiful sight of what heaven's going to look like as all these nations are now crisscrossing. But then there wasn't. But over 1 billion people in India are living far from God without any access to know about Jesus. They've never held a Bible. And research shows there's 7 billion of us alive today. 4 billion have access. You can actually know who Jesus is. If you want to pray the sinner's prayer, you can pray it. If you want a Bible, you can get a Bible. But there's 3 billion that do not have that access. And they literally do not know who Jesus is. They don't know anything about the Bible. And those live in what we refer to as the 1040 window, a quadrant that goes from Africa all the way through Asia. And India's smack dab in the middle of one of those 3 billion call India home. And I've been staring at that, asking God, how will they ever know? And he really began to just show me, pound John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave, and that his strategy is audacious generosity. Well, we could begin to sense the vision of God over that and have a panic attack. How will we ever afford the billions of dollars it will take to give them Jesus, to give them Bibles, to disciple them, to provide access to the gospel to 3 billion people? It's going to be billions and billions and billions of dollars. And yet he didn't ask the disciples for any money on that day of feeding the multitude. And he does not need our money. We need his endless resources. And as we hang out with him, that giver will just take over in and through us. And that's how the task of the Great Commission will be finished. Matthew 24, verse 14 says, this good news of the kingdom will be preached in every nation, and then the end will come. So it's not going to be COVID-19. It's not going to be ransomware attack or the Middle East exploding around the world in World War III or whatever we might think, or an asteroid from space hitting us. It's going to be only when every person has access to hear about Jesus. He's that loving and passionate for all of us to live in his presence, that he is long suffering and patient and waiting until everyone has access. And that's happening, even in a pandemic. We are more globally connected with what's happening around the world than ever before. And that not only means the bad news and all the fear and all the horrible crime and everything else, but it also means the gospel is going out. your podcast can be heard in closed nations right now. That will not allow a pastor or a Bible to come in, but they can hear the gospel even during this episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, it's Caleb. Kevin will be right back. Kevin White is an international speaker and best-selling author who loves helping people everywhere to prosper in God's presence. A serial entrepreneur, Kevin has helped start hundreds of businesses, nonprofits, and churches. As founder and executive director of Global Hope India, Kevin has traveled over 1 million miles to 27 different countries, speaking to thousands of audiences throughout India and the world. Visit kevinwhite.us for Kevin's books, 1-Minute Motivation Series, and podcasts. Visit kevinwhite.us today. For over 20 years, Global Hope India has been empowering the church in India as they make Christ known. Visit globalhopeindia.org and learn how you can pray, give, and go. Over 1,000 people have served on one of GHI's short-term mission trips to India. Now you can join a virtual mission team to India. Visit globalhopeindia.org today because everyone should have access to hear about Jesus. Okay, now back to the show.
Yeah, as you're talking, I'm just thinking about one thing that I've noticed about the Great Commission is Jesus said the ends of the earth, knowing full well that he had created a round globe. So there is no end. Once you go all the way around, you're going to start right back over. And it also reminds me of the story I once that I heard. And I think many people are familiar with it, of the starfish washed up on the shore. And it's like a storm, and there's thousands of these starfish out there. They're dying because they're out of the water. But there's this kid, maybe 8 years old, frantically throwing them back in the water, one after the other after the other. And an adult comes up and says, "Son, you're not going to be able to save all of them." He said, "Well, I can save this one." And he threw another one, and he kept going. And that's the idea. We don't have to save. Well, number one, we can't save because it's not our job, but we don't have to reach the 3 billion. We just have to reach the ones that we can, and then let that spread and let it go viral and let the gospel go viral as they bring it to each other. Jesus didn't have to go into that Samaritan village and witness to every person in town. He just talked to the woman at the well who went and then told the town. And that's how it starts, is we go and get the one that we can and then let God take care of the rest and let God give us the next one and then the next one. Because we'll never reach 3 billion on our own. It's going to be us telling 500 million who then tell the other half and then the other half and the other half. It's Jesus is the ultimate multi-level marketing system. Absolutely. You tell 2 friends, they tell 2 friends, they tell 2 friends. And at least in this one, the retirement plan is guaranteed.
Yes, very true. Yeah. I was having a conversation last week with a pastor. Right now, India is going through hell with COVID-19, and the death rate is worse than at any other nation at any other time so far in the pandemic. Thousands of people a day, every 30 seconds, someone is dying of COVID-19 in India. And the horrible reality is not just the deaths, which is tragic. The ultimate tragedy is that they are dying without having yet had access to know about Jesus, facing a Christless eternity. And so we were just talking about the 20 years and what we're trying to do right now, because Global Hope India, I'm founder and executive director of Global Hope India, and we firmly believe that everyone should have access to know about Jesus. And so we are passionately working, taking 1,000 people on short-term mission trips in the last 10 years. We've raised millions of dollars for God's work. And every day we are getting up again and working again to do for some what we wish that we could do for all. And he was just saying, because, right now we're if you're in a nonprofit pastoral network at all, you've heard the term compassion fatigue. It's a real reality where as a result of just giving and giving and giving and pain and pain and pain, it's a real reality of just having what's called compassion fatigue. And so he was just saying, how do you get back up tomorrow and do it again? Because like we are now focused on collecting as many $20 toward vaccines as possible. It takes $20 to vaccinate one person in India. Our initial goal is $200,000, and that will save 10,000 people's lives, not only with the vaccine of COVID-19, but to give them opportunity to hear about Jesus. And so he was like, how do you keep going? And the reality is the church has never been just one leader doing one thing, but it is Kevin doing what God has given Kevin to do, and Dave doing what God has given you to do, and over and over and over throughout the universe of the big C church around the world. And that is Jesus. And Jesus is glorious, and there's nothing impossible with our God. And have absolute belief and confidence that God is on a mission to finish the task of the Great Commission, and that the church is his redemptive organization to do that. It is his plan. Jesus said, I will build my church and the gates of hell will not prevail against it.
Amen.
And he wasn't talking about a building with walls. And one of the things that happened as a result of COVID-19 is the church was taken out of its building. We've heard of the church without walls before, but now universally, the church is literally, even in some way, locked out of its building, not able to assemble, illegal to assemble, not because of religious persecution as some of our brothers and sisters face, but because of health reasons, because of COVID-19. And so it forced the church to go out of its walls and to be creative and to continue to care and to continue to minister the gospel and to continue to make Christ known and to value what's valuable, to prioritize its values and really have some wake-up calls and reality checks. And I really think it's a purification and a pruning that's going to really bring about a glorious church, a bride that's without spot or wrinkle, that really unites together.
Thank you for listening to The Kevin White Show. Find the complete archive of all episodes at kevinwhite.us or subscribe for free through your favorite podcast player and never miss an episode. This program, copyright Kevin White International, all rights reserved. Each week we bring you a message of life, transformation, and prosperity from God. Remembering God's greatest gift is His very own presence, made possible through Jesus Christ. Join us again next week for Living the Dream with Kevin White.